Konnichiwa, Nihon Cricket Pod do Yokoso. Welcome to the Japan Cricket Podcast. Season 1 is definitely behind us, but Season 2 is not quite here yet, so you can think of this as a bonus episode, if listening to me can ever really be considered a bonus. Before the episode itself, I have a few things to fill my loyal listeners in on. Firstly, thanks to all those who completed the feedback form. It is still live and in the show notes for anyone else who wants to put some thoughts into it. I am looking to build a lot of the suggestions into Season 2, although they won't all be seen right away, as I have been busy recording interviews over the winter, which will bear a distinct resemblance to the format of the Season 1 chats, but with different guests who are all equally wonderful. On that note, at this stage, I'm planning on posting episodes every 2 weeks rather than every week, so folks will just have to be a little more patient, but I am sure it'll be worth the wait. I'm also planning to include a bit more info on Japan cricket this year, most likely in the form of a quick roundup of domestic results, highlighting some individual performances that are noteworthy, and keeping you all in the loop of any news from around the Japan cricket scene, be that events, tournaments, squad announcements, or generally other stuff that's exciting to hear about. So I hope you're all looking forward to that. Additionally, I have had a few people ask about how to get involved with Japan cricket. Well, the easiest way is to join a club. There are plenty of them, and you can find them listed under the Play Cricket, Find a Local Club tab on the JCA website, cricket.or.jp. Clubs are always after players, administrators, or just fans to join their community. From a JCA perspective, we are always looking for good umpires, scorers, and this year we'll even be after some commentators, ideally ones who can speak English and Japanese, but we'll take what we can get. If you'd like more information, then you can email the JCA on info@cricket.or.jp, or you can drop me a message via the Instagram page of the Japan Cricket Podcast, and I'll try and point you in the right direction. Okay, that's most of the admin out of the way, and on to this episode. Almost. Over the course of the winter, I have been approached by a couple of different folks who were keen to learn more about Japan cricket. One of those was a very nice chap called Sam Gilbert, an Australian former karate champion who now runs Club 360, the sports and fitness centers in Tokyo, who invited me on his podcast, Tokyo Living, which I very much enjoyed. So, if after you finish listening to this, you want another serving of me, then head over there for a listen. The link is in the show notes, and if you're based in Japan, then you should subscribe while you're there, as there's plenty of good stuff about good health and lifestyle choices for those living in Tokyo and elsewhere in the country. The other folks who reached out were Siddharth and Nikhil, two cricket fans who are based in Delhi and Melbourne respectively, and run their YouTube channel Cricket Spectacle. They were also keen to learn more about Japan cricket, and so I brushed my hair, trimmed my beard, and made a rare appearance in front of the YouTube cameras. There wasn't too much crossover between the two shows. There may be a few bits and pieces, but I think they are both worth listening to. And if you enjoy what you hear on this episode and are curious about some of the other guests that have appeared on Cricket Spectacle, once again, be sure to visit their channel and subscribe. The link is where? In the show notes. Okay, that's it. No more procrastinating. Time to get on with the show.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to yet another special episode of Cricket Spectacle. I'm Siddharth Gulati and I'm joined by Nikhil Deshpande. Today's episode will be no different from what we have tried to do from the last 11 months or so. Staying relevant is key, as that makes our content better. So let's get started. Please welcome our esteemed guest, Mr. Alan Curr, Head of Cricket Operations at Japan Cricket Association. So he has experience in sports and project management at grassroots level in Japan, and he has also worked as a sports journalist. Alan, it's good to have you on the show.
Thanks, Siddharth. Yeah, it's good to be here, and thanks, Nikhil. It's always a pleasure to talk cricket, and particularly Japan cricket is a subject close to my heart. So hopefully we can tell you guys all about the game over here and how it's developing.
Yeah, I think that will be nice. So Nikhil, I request you to, please start with your questions and then I'll go after you.
Yeah, sure. So, Alan, the first thing we usually ask all our guests, the first thing is how did you get into cricket, and especially Cricket Japan for you, and how that whole story started? Like, what was your journey like?
Yeah, it's probably a bit unusual, mine. I mean, I've been a cricket fan all my life, as you'd expect, but after university, I went traveling. I went to the Rugby World Cup in Australia. That was 2003. So as an England fan, it was great. I got to see England win the Rugby World Cup. That was brilliant. And then after that, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my career. I was 22, 23 years old, and I kind of decided I wanted to work in either sport or travel. Um, and being a 22, 23-year-old non-sporty guy, it was kind of difficult to break into playing any kind of sport professionally. So sports administration at that point, I didn't really know how to get into it. So I went the other way, and I worked in the travel industry. I worked for a company called Flight Centre, which you'll probably know, Nikhil, in Melbourne.
Yeah.
They're an Australian company, and I worked there on and off for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. I took a break in 2007 and went to the Caribbean for the Cricket World Cup. So I was kind of planning my life around sporting events. And the 2007 World Cup in the Caribbean was brilliant. I had a really good time out there. And then after that, I got involved with a project organizing a cricket match up on Mount Everest. So that was
Mount Everest.
that took place in 2009.
Okay.
And it was called the Everest Test. We raised money for a few charities, the Lord's Taverners, the Himalayan Rescue Association. We took a whole load of guys up to the original Everest base camp. There's a brilliant book called Cricket on Everest, written by me, which you can read.
That's a good flex. So when you were watching it,
Cheeky
please
plug.
read it. Yep.
It's so that was 2009, and I mean it was brilliant, and I fell in love with Nepal while I was there. And off the back of that trip, I came back to England, and I wanted to change the kind of work I was doing. I wanted to move more into adventure travel, and that's where I kind of started working in more project management side of things. The Everest Test was a huge project. My role in that was kind of as expedition secretary, so really a lot of logistics and the non-glamorous side of things. And I umpired the game itself, and it was a world record at the time for the highest ever game of cricket. So we got into the Guinness Book of Records. And yeah, that was all really great fun. And like I said, off the back of that, I then ended up working in an adventure travel company. And that's when I did some of my more interesting travel. I went to Afghanistan, Pakistan. I went to India a couple of times. I went to Iraqi Kurdistan. And I did that for around 3 years. And I got to the age of about 32, I think I was. And I decided that I'd done 10 years in travel. It'd been great, but that my other passion was sport. It was still an itch I wanted to scratch. And so I actually, at the time, I'd organized to go on a big walk. I walked the length of the River Thames in 7 days, which works out at a marathon every day for 7 days. And I did that all sort of on my own support. And whilst over those 7 days, I kind of spent that time thinking about really what I was going to do next. And off the back of that, I quit my job. Well, actually, the very first job I came on the Monday morning, I was back at my desk, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. And the very first job I saw was on the ICC website, Cricket in Japan, a project manager for a program. So the deadline for applications was actually the day before. So I fired off a quick email to the name that was there and said, look, I've seen that the deadline was yesterday. If I get my CV in, will you still look at it? And I got a reply saying, get it in today and we'll have a look at it. Yeah. And so in between times, I'd actually spent a little bit of time living in Kathmandu in Nepal. After I got back from the Everest test, I decided that I wanted to try living overseas, and I went back to the company that helped us organize that and give something back to them. And I worked with them for 3 or 4 months, but ultimately I couldn't get a visa to stay longer. So I'd kind of felt that mission had failed, really. I hadn't done what I wanted to do, and I still wanted to live overseas. So when the opportunity came up to work in cricket in Japan, it really appealed. I'd been over here on holiday in 2012. I had a good friend here from university, and I knew a bit about Japan. I didn't know much about the cricket scene here, but didn't take long to do a bit of research and get up to speed on that. And yeah, within 3 months, I was living in Japan, and life changed quite dramatically.
And that's quite a interesting story, though, because when you started with England winning the rugby league, by the way, was that the one where Wilkinson was a part of the team? Oh, okay, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, the drop goal.
Yeah. That was probably, maybe as an English fan, winning it in Australia would have been like
as bad as it gets.
Yeah, and you can better that, right? It's like probably for India winning a World Cup in Pakistan or that kind of thing. So it can get better than that. But like you said, the whole your journey in particular, your personal journey has been like, it's so varied and it's so unique compared to what I have never heard anything like that. First of all, I didn't know there was a match at Everest. I didn't know you could play anything near Mount Everest.
Well, we took a pitch up there, and we took a flex pitch up there and
Oh,
tried it
okay.
out, and we had to move all the boulders and everything. So the pitch didn't exist until we got there.
Yeah. So to get that information itself, I think I already am like this episode is already worth it. But moving towards the uh, cricket in Japan part of it, Alan, like how did that develop from like say, when you moved there as well? I'm pretty sure that it wasn't like it you don't associate cricket and Japan that like vividly, right? It's like it's completely non-associated. Probably like soccer would be one of those things, like martial arts, like there's so many other sports like badminton maybe, and there's so many other sports which you will relate to Japan before you would relate cricket, right? So what was your experience when you moved there, and how did you like tackle the initial hurdles, and what were they? How did you face that
Yeah.
experience?
So when I first got here, my job specifically for my first 2 years was to build and roll out a junior cricket product for under 12s. So I was my job title was slightly different to what it is now. It was project manager, junior participation was my job title, and it was a project that was funded by the ICC at the time. They had put out to tender to all the associates to apply for extra funding to have a targeted participation program. And Japan picked that up, and the USA and Canada were also accepted on the same program, and they all rolled out slightly different times. Because I had to work a notice period that it took me a while to get over here and everything. So I was behind those other two. So the very first obstacle I actually encountered was the Big Three takeover at the ICC, which you may remember in,
Yeah.
I'm going to say,
Yeah.
February 2014.
Absolutely.
I'd only been in the job like a month, and been in the country like a month, having packed my bags and moved all the way across the world, to then find out that the ICC were completely overhauling their governance, and the chance that my project would be discontinued after a year was a bit of a shock. I was on a 1-year contract, but had been told that it was the idea was for it to be 4 years. So that was a bit of a knock very early on. But I mean, it turned out slightly differently. The funding was extended for a second year. But then, the cultural differences, and like you say, the sporting landscape here, there's quite unique challenges, I think, that Japan has, in that Japan is a country where the school system tends to specialize in sport from an early age. So when you finish elementary school at the age of 12 and you move into junior high school, they have what's called the Bukatsu system. And in that system, you pick your club, and then that might be a sport club, it might be an academic club. But that's what you do in your extracurricular activity time. You do one thing, and you do it all year round. And
You pick it after class 12, it's it?
Yeah, and sometimes before class, and you'll do it 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, depending how serious you are, and you do it all year round. So the big sport here is actually baseball. So when it comes to sort of bat and ball sports, baseball is huge. I mean, football, soccer is massive as well. And so those are the big ones. And for us, cricket's not on the menu. So there's very few places. There are one or two cricket bukatsus, but when you think about it, actually, it would be quite a good way for cricket to establish itself, because the more time you put in to practice, the more you're likely to get out of it. But it's an odd system, and the program I was working on, as I said, was that under 12 age group. We were trying to get cricket into them, in the hope that when they did move into the high schools, that they would have that deep rooted love of the game, that they would continue playing. They'd find a way to keep playing. And catering to that age group was always going to be a challenge, and it's something that we've been working on over the 8 years that I've been here. The other slightly random challenge that I encountered was all the schools and the systems that they work within. They have this teacher rotation system. So the teachers aren't employed by the school, they're all employed by the local government. And so at the beginning of every academic year, the teachers can get moved to a different school with barely a week's notice. just somewhere within the city. So, and the way you find out is you open the newspaper on a certain day, and it tells
So
you.
they also learn about it in the newspaper, or
Yeah.
okay, that's
So
very interesting.
it's bonkers, isn't it? So then you might end up working at one school for 10 years, or you could work at 10 different schools over 10 years.
Yeah,
So when you're going to the teachers and the school with an idea to try something new, a lot of the time people don't want to roll out anything new because they might not be here the following year to continue it. So that was a challenge as well. But I mean, at the same time, the elementary schools were always quite open to trying something new. And where we were particularly, we're out in the countryside, we're about 80 kilometers north of Tokyo. So there's not that many native English speakers, and English is still something that people want to get their kids to learn. So we're using English as a way to get the sport played and building English terms into all of our classes. And you know, the elementary schools are generally quite welcoming to have sport come in, but a lot of the time it was, you could come in for one or two have a go sessions, but that doesn't really, you're unlikely to fall in love with the sport off one go.
for sure.
You know, we were trying very hard to get 4 to 6 visits to the same kids. And we set up our own programs. The Cricket Blast program was our under 12 program, which is still running now. And I'm sure we'll probably talk a bit more about that later on, but those programs have helped filter kids into our systems, and we've worked really hard to try and retain those kids. So yeah, look, it's had its challenges, but the kids that are really passionate and do love the game, they do find a way to stay involved even when they go on to high school. But yeah, you have these drop-offs in participation that you have to try and really focus on and try and keep kids at that time, because once they stay in, they're likely to improve quite significantly in that period.
I think with, like you said, like with repetition as well, then the more you play a game, the more you fall in love with it as well. And I think a part of it probably is kind of responsible is in terms of the telecast of cricket as well on TV and stuff, the exposure to the sport, right? How is that in Japan? I mean, it obviously not compared to like soccer and stuff. Baseball will be higher as well. But do kids get to watch cricket, like if they want to? Because let's say they play a sport today and they go home and watch how the professional players are playing. That kind of does have an impact on the retention as well, right?
Yeah, there's a number of really huge obstacles to that. I mean, the advent of the internet has been fantastic. You know, a lot of people will just go watch cricket on YouTube, but they won't necessarily watch a full game.
Right.
Certainly not going to watch a 5-day test, but even a 3-hour T20 game is quite a big ask. So people are watching clips, and that's helpful, but it doesn't give the full picture. As any cricket fan knows, you've got to see the ball before a wicket was taken to really understand why the wicket was taken, right?
Yeah.
And so people get an idea, and we've got some pretty good players who've taught themselves how to play off watching, you know, Shane Warne bowl on YouTube. But the challenge is there's nothing on TV. And all the YouTube stuff is still in English, obviously. There's nothing in Japanese.
Yeah.
So kids who don't speak any English, then it's difficult for them. One of the real challenges and one of the real sources of frustration for us is there's a lot of people at the ICC who are working quite hard and well-meaning to try and get cricket on TV for us to watch. And you guys are probably aware there's ICC.TV nowadays, which does show some stuff, except they also show stuff that's behind the paywall, and we can't access it. And sure, there are a lot of cricket fans living in Japan. The cricket community here is developing and growing quite nicely. But you know, that's people like myself and other people from overseas who love cricket and want to watch it. People here who are a developing audience, they're not necessarily going to go and pay to watch the Ashes or to watch a World Cup. And so that stuff needs to be accessible for free in emerging markets. Otherwise, people aren't going to see it. And what we'd then love to do is to have, you know, maybe and I have had these conversations. So there is a desire to do it, but to have some kind of highlights package slimmed down to 30 minutes, 45 minutes, which with Japanese explaining what's happened in the game. And you know, a little bit of punditry, and talking about why this thing was good and this thing's bad, you know, and really kind of helping people to understand and engage in the sport, because ultimately you can't be what you can't see. So for us, for cricket to be more visible, is going to be important. And look, live streaming helps, and we live stream some of our own stuff, but it needs to be a quality production, because in Japan particularly, things need to look good.
Yeah.
And cricket is fantastic at looking good at the top end. But as soon as you drop down below the international levels or below the big domestic leagues, the quality of production drops away pretty spectacularly. And some of the stuff on ICC TV, with the greatest respect to them, we couldn't show that to people, because people would be like, this sport looks like a joke.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying as well, because like in cricket, in like many other sports, the ball actually moves so quickly as well, because it's like we can bowl, and if I hit the ball on the offside, and let's say it takes an edge and actually goes to third man instead of
The camera's gone this way.
exactly, and the ball's there, and then it just looks funny, because it is what it is, right? Like you don't have multiple cameras at a venue, then it will look pretty funny. And that kind of, it definitely ties into the problem of the selling part of it, because like I totally relate to what you're saying in terms of like from a marketing perspective, because as someone from social media, that is probably my biggest pet peeve, to post something of low quality video.
Yes.
Because it just is such a repulsive thing in today's time, because, and especially for you, maybe because you are trying to sell it to kids who probably are the toughest market to capture, right? Because adults would understand, like a 20-year-old kid wouldn't go, why is this in only 720 pixel? That a 12-year-old kid, he's going to be like, why isn't this in like HD 4000 whatever pixel and blah, blah. But in coming back to the people who are playing the game though, Alan, like, do you see natives from Japan are like a dominant section of the market, or is it like mostly related to expats? Because the countries which we have spoken to earlier, like Scotland, Germany, even we spoke to Iceland as well recently, majority of their playing population is like expats and the second generation expats as well. So what's the split like? Like not exactly, but would you reckon how does that look?
I'd say, I mean, look, women's game is 100% Japanese, pretty much, maybe 99.5. But the men's game, when I arrived, we would say it was probably around 50-50, maybe slightly in favor of the expats. Since then, the community has grown a lot. Japan has had an interesting shift in immigration policy over the last kind of 10 to 15 years, where we're getting a lot less migrants from China and Korea, as relations there have become a bit tense, and we're getting a lot more from cricket playing nations. India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal particularly have all seen their populations in Japan rise a lot. And that's great for us. And we've put quite a lot of effort in to engage those communities. A lot of those guys were playing their own sort of tennis ball, take ball competitions around in various places of the country where there aren't cricket grounds. They find a field somewhere and play. And we've worked quite hard to engage those. So the percentage, the community has grown, so the percentage of expats has probably gone up. But I still feel that the number of Japanese players has increased, despite the percentage perhaps dropping more to 60-40 now against. But, we're talking about, oh God, as of, I should really know this, as of pre-pandemic, we were up at around just short of 5,000 registered players. And I'd say that, you'd be somewhere to more than a third of those were native Japanese players. And that we've also, our Japan national team for the last, I'm going to say 6 years, maybe 7 years, has been 100% Japanese nationals. We had very strict eligibility criteria, more so than the ICC. We wanted to make sure that the people who were playing for Japan were role models and could be, easily identifiable with society. We have changed that in the last couple of years. Not that we haven't, our men's team haven't played a tournament since 2018. So it's kind of international cricket at our level is rare. So, for us, obviously our goal is to develop a Japanese cricket playing audience and fan base.
That's nice. So, Nikhil, I'll take over from you now. So, Alan, I have a question that what's the current landscape of franchisee-based cricket in Japan?
Franchisee based.
Yeah.
Well, look, there's no franchises.
Probably
and there's no
clubs would be a better way to put it.
There's
I guess.
no
Clubs.
there's no full-time professional cricketers really. We did just announce we had the first player gain a professional contract. We actually announced that on Wednesday. One of our women's players, Shizuka Miyagi, has been signed up for the Fair Break Invitational Tournament, which is taking place in Dubai in May. So that's the first time a Japanese player has signed a professional contract to play in a competition overseas. But in terms of clubs, I guess we've got, I'll explain the structures. That might make it a bit more easier to understand. We have a 40 over league and a T20 competition. So the T20 competition is based around our regions. So we have 7 active regions. There's 9 in total, but 7 who hold their own T20 domestic league. Those will vary from having 3 or 4 teams to 10, 12. I think the biggest one's got 14 teams in it. Those teams play throughout the season and they qualify for Japan Cup finals, which takes place in October every year. Within that, we've then got the Japan Premier League. So the 5 biggest regions each have a regional representative team, and they will play in a 3-day tournament called the Japan Premier League. And that's kind of the highest standard of cricket in Japan. And I guess that's one of the things that we try and promote and market as the best level of cricket that we have domestically. The 40 over
T20, is it?
That's T20, yeah.
Okay.
So to give you an idea, last year, and that competition is called the Japan Cup, which is the regional competition. That had about 60 teams in it last year, I think, maybe just shy of that. And that's up from about 16 in 2014 when I got here. So
Like
that's a big
4 times, yeah. Almost 4
yeah,
times.
it's a big growth in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
The Japan Cricket League is the 40 over competition that runs through the season. When I got here, I'm going to say there was about 16 or 17 of those teams playing across 2 divisions. Now we've got 3 divisions, and there are, as of last season, 27 teams. That'll probably go up to possibly around 30 this year.
That's for the 40.
But that's the competition where we really try and build clubs. So even though you've got 3 leagues, you might have a club with a first 11, third 11 playing in each of the divisions. Whereas in the Japan Cup, basically anyone can form a team. You could move to Japan and call us up at the start of the season, say, me and 10 mates want to play in the Japan Cup, and we'd assign you to the relevant competition depending on where you're based. But the Japan Cricket League, you've got to be a proper club with a structure. You've got to have, a constitution, a bank account, a committee. You've got to have a junior team. You're looking to create a women's team. So yeah, there's a few clubs that are really growing quite significantly and are well set up now that they'll survive anything really. Those clubs, they're very much built into the landscape here.
So do they have like tiers in terms of like men's, women's, and kids under 16 or something?
Yeah.
So they have they are a parent club for all those.
Yeah. So I mean, going back to the challenges when I first arrived, one of the big challenges was there was nothing really between under 12s and senior cricket.
Yeah.
So a kid would finish playing under 12 level with a rubber ball, and would then at age 13 be playing against men with a hard ball.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a jump. So now we have an under 15 and an under 19 league. And that pathway was set up properly in 2016. It took a bit of time to build it, but that's been really, really productive for us. So yeah, you'll have clubs which will have a first, second, third 11 playing in the JCL. Then they'll have a Japan Cup team. Then they'll have an under 19s, under 15s, and hopefully an under 12 team playing in the Cricket Blast competition. And then ideally they'll have a women's team too. There's one club in Japan that ticked all of those boxes last year. And hopefully there'll be a few more to come. So yeah, it's really promising, and hopefully that can continue and set an example for other clubs to follow because, if you have the right structures in the past, you'd have a club that might have been built off one person's passion. If that person
Yeah.
goes back to their home country, the whole club falls apart. So that's not sustainable. So yeah.
So, how did you and the whole of, say, maybe Japan cricket setup manage to get going in these, crazy times that we live in from the last couple of years or so?
Yeah, it's been hard. I mean, honestly, last year was actually harder than 2020 because in 2020, no one really knew what was happening and everything was off.
Yeah.
And then we restarted. So for us, our cricket season normally runs from the very start of April through to the very end of October. Whereas in 2020, we didn't get started until July. So we had a reduced season and we played our final, I think, on the last weekend of November. It's pretty cold. It gets dark pretty early. But then last year was really stop-start because the government kept changing their rules, and certain areas where you might have grounds would say, "Oh, you can't use this ground, and you can't use this ground," and all of a sudden, people have got to travel 4 hours to the nearest cricket ground, and it became very difficult. And we had the Olympics last year in Japan as well, so
Yeah.
that the government were very kind of cautious around that, and the Japanese government is cautious about most things. So yeah, that has been really tough. And yeah, like our numbers have gone down. Definitely. We've struggled and suffered along with everyone else. Women's cricket has been hit quite hard. And actually the area that I'm most worried about is possibly university cricket, because that traditionally has been a good place for people to learn and to find the sport. But students haven't been able to play any sport. Their university has said, like, there's no sports clubs running. So we've missed getting the new intake for 2 years now. It's the third year coming up now, and you just got to hope that people are going to be able to recruit new players, because otherwise you're going to have 3 years. I mean, university in Japan's 4 years, but if this continues, a sport like cricket that relies on sort of a year on year being handed over, it's not well known in Japan yet. So if there's not people to hand it over, it will just stop.
Yeah.
And that could really cut off a pipeline for us, particularly for the females, because the boys are still coming through, but the girls, if you're picking up a bat for the first time aged 18, the chances of you developing to a high level player is quite slim. But for girls, it's really not. You could develop quite fast. That's been a worry, definitely. But look, we're quite lucky we've got this cricket ground on our doorstep, and we have been able to hold most of our competitions. The most frustrating thing has been we were due to host international competitions in 2020 and 2021, and we lost out on those. The most significant one being the Under-19 World Cup qualifier. With that not being held, that cost us a place or an opportunity in the World Cup, having gone to the last one. So that was a pretty difficult one to take.
Yeah. So, I was basically about to ask you about the landscape of women's cricket only, but you really answered that. So, I think one final question to you is that, what's that one piece of advice that you would give to the younger Japan players who are making their way into cricket?
Probably even others as well, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
because I think many of our viewers as well, in terms of the following, is probably for people from emerging cricketing countries, right? So, like in general, like I think you would probably know a bit more detailed knowledge about the Japanese community and that bit. But in general, though, like if you were talking to a youngster, like what would you tell them? How would you rope them into love the game of cricket?
Honestly, for me, it's just to stick with it. Because there's so many obstacles to sport. There's so many distractions. There's so many reasons not to do things. Whether it's playing on your phone, your iPad, or whatever the latest console is. Living an active outdoor lifestyle is important for so many reasons. But look, for me, ultimately, cricket has given me the best life experiences I've had, the best friendships I've made. And I think cricket is unique in sports in that you have that time off the field where you really get to know people. I mean, the amount of times that you're just sat on the boundary edge, waiting to bat or after you've got out, and you really get to know people. You might travel away with them. You might go on tours. and most of the sports don't have that.
Yeah.
And that's what really makes cricket, I think, special, is the human connections that you can make and the learnings you can make from other people. And I think that's really special in terms of building sort of camaraderie, team spirit, and just broadening your horizons as a person. And my favorite thing, you talk about more specifically emerging nations.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've been really proud of is how cricket has helped Japanese people who are naturally kind of introverted, and Japan is kind of an insular society. It didn't even open up to the rest of the world until the late 1800s, having been completely shut off from people coming into the borders for 200 years. So, that sort of mentality still exists. And so now I've had guys in the Japanese cricket community who have said that before they started playing cricket, they were actually afraid of foreigners, people that they might see, guys like you or me, walking down the street. They would cross the road because they were a little bit scared of them. But having played cricket with and against them,
Yeah.
they've learned that that's really not an issue. And it's an education thing. It's broadening people's horizons. And that's been really great. And I hope we can continue to do that.
I mean, that's
That's
absolutely.
nice.
I completely agree with the fact that the multicultural aspect of it is pretty important as well, because like just playing a team sport in general gives that kind of camaraderie, and just knowing the person right next to you, and it's just opens so many doors. Like you see it in soccer, you see it in cricket, any team sport, basketball, anything that you take, and that's kind of the gist of sports, right? Like just that whole togetherness and the team of it. I think this probably has been one of my favorite episodes so far in terms of like how much we have learned about
Same here.
cricket, and especially from a nation which is not like renowned for cricket, but the growth which you spoke about, like even in terms of the numbers, like 5,000 registered players, it's pretty big. Like 60 teams participating in any tournament is still pretty big, considering we at least need 11 players per team plus a couple of backups in case someone gets a call up or has some work or anything on that sort. So that's really, really pretty cool. And I really wish you guys a lot of luck. And I want you guys to be a part of the upcoming years, and just like in terms of watching you guys perform at the highest level, because as much as we love our Indias and Australias and Englands and South Africa, cricket is about growing that sport in every possible nation. Right? And it's a growing sport, and I really wish that, and I'm pretty sure, Alan, you'll get them right. You'll get them there. We'll make sure about that.
I have the same advice that I said just then of sticking with it kind of applies to me as well. You gotta keep on going and keep believing. When you're a sports administrator, you need to believe in what you're doing and love what you're doing, and hope I'm lucky that I do. So we'll keep on plugging away, and hopefully, like you say, you'll be seeing more Japanese players in professional leagues, and hopefully Japan playing in World Cups again in the future.
That's the hope, and we are completely behind you and cricket in Japan as well. Thanks for talking to us, Alan, and sharing the wonderful insights about your own personal journey as well as cricket in Japan. And for all your viewers who are watching, please like, share, subscribe, and just follow all the emerging nations, right, including Japan. And in this case, even read Alan's book. It's in the plug at the start of the episode. Don't miss it. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it. So,
Good man. I'll also mention that the best places to learn about Japan cricket, the Japan cricket website, which is just cricket.or.jp. We've got an Instagram page, Japan cricket, Twitter and Facebook. We're really active on all of those platforms. So lots of information there. And as of last season, I actually started the Japan Cricket podcast as well. So you can go and have a listen to that.
Nice.
It's
perfect.
That's nice.
All right. On that beautiful note, we'll sign off. This is me, Nikhil, Siddharth, and that was Alan. We wish we'll bring you all more of such brilliant episodes. Till the next time, good day, goodbye, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening, and if you did, then please be sure to rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. It will just help others to discover the wonderful world of Japan cricket. I will be back soon, end of this month, most likely. And in the meantime, stay safe, enjoy where you are, and お疲れ様でした.